What a great crowd today. Welcome to Church of Vieira. We have an auditorium filled here. We have an upstairs that's pretty filled, and then we have people in the cafe. They told me last week we had over 1,000 people at the 10 o'clock service. So this is the most popular service. If you're feeling crowded and you want more space, we have 8:30 and 11:30, exactly same service. Exactly same kids ministry. You could help us out by coming to one of those services to make sure that people have enough seats. But if you like it crowded, come on, just come early because they fill up quick. One of my favorite movies has this line. What we got here is a failure to communicate. That's not only from Cool Hand Luke, but that's also the reality of a lot of relationships today. What we got here is a problem to communicate. So I thought as we started off this brand new series about relationships built to last, we would hit on the number one topic that relationships need. Couples are asked this question repeatedly by counselors: what would help your relationship more than anything else? And the number one answer is, we need to communicate better. So we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to give you some tips. I'm going to give you some techniques. We're going to look at some scripture, how we can be more effective in our communication. It's like the lady who went to her lawyer and said, I want to get a divorce from my husband. And so the attorney said, okay, let's start with some questions. Do you have any grounds? She said, yeah, we have 10 acres out in the country. We go quite often. He said, no. Do you have a grudge? Well, no, we don't have one of those, but we have a carport, and it's pretty wide, and storage unit. He's like, let me ask you this another way. Do you have any complaints against him? Well, like what? Well, does he beat you up? No, I'm usually up an hour before he is in the morning. Well, what about your role in the marriage? I mean, do you ever wake up grouchy? No, when he's in a bad mood, I just let him sleep. And so exasperated, the lawyer just finally said, why is it you're wanting a divorce? Because the guy can't communicate. Yeah. Guys, every aspect of your relationship, whatever you want to talk about today, your marriage, your kids, your friendships, every aspect goes back to how you communicate. You can't improve any other area that you're worried about if you're not communicating well. So let's start there. How can we be better, effective communicators? Now, we have more ways to communicate, more devices, more forums for communication than any other culture, and yet we still have a big problem with it. Think about it. We carry around with us a cell phone where we can talk to anybody, anytime, anywhere, 24/7. We can text people, we can email people, we can group text a whole bunch of people. Now, I just want to say right up front, group texts are from the devil. Anybody agree with me on that? Yeah. I'm trying to get my work done, I'm trying to get this message done, and then one of you friends sends me a funny meme in the middle of my work day, and all of a sudden I hear this ping, ping, ping. And after the third or fourth ping, you got to look at it because it could be an emergency, right? And it's not an emergency. It's just a funny meme you sent me, but not just me. You sent 50 other friends. So I'll tell you what I like to do. I like to throw in something controversial and just get everybody going. You know, what did y'all think about the press conference with Zelensky in the White House the other day? And then I just duck out. Let their pings go off, right? Guys, you cannot not communicate. English majors, I know it's a double negative, but you know what I'm talking about. Even silence is a way to communicate. How many got the silent treatment this week? Don't raise your hand. I'm not trying to get you in trouble. Many of us got the silent treatment from somebody this week. That's a way of communicating. Communication is not just verbal. We know that. It is also so much of nonverbal. Matter of fact, they say 55% of communication is nonverbal. So, The way your tone of voice, the way you communicate through your body language, your facial expression, all of that is just as important as the spoken words. Well, Mark, I'm not good at communicating. I didn't grow up in a family like yours that taught me how to communicate well. Well, good news. Communication is a learned skill. It's like anything else. If you want to get better at it, you can learn and get better at communication. But you're going to have to practice, and you're going to have to read books. And I've been reading books about relationships my whole life because I want the best relationships. I want the best marriage. I read marriage books all the time, even after being married 40 plus years. I want to get better in being a good husband. I want to be better as a granddad and as a parent. So you read books, you study, you learn. All of us can do that with communication. Great books out there I'm using today by Gary Smalley and Les and Leslie Parrott, Dr. Henry Cloud, and Dr. Seuss, and all kinds of great relationship books. Maybe you've read Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. Here's another, this is a book. Men are clams, women are crowbars. Here's one. I don't know if any of you have read this one. Men are jerks until proven otherwise. I'm not going to ask for an amen on that one. There's all kinds of relationship books out there, but let's start with the 5 levels of communication. When you communicate, you're communicating on one of these levels. First level is you repeat cliches. We do this with people we don't know really well. How'd your day go? Right? How was school today? How you doing? We can do those cliches. Stay on the surface. What's happening? That's the safe level. If you don't know what to say to me, just say, how about them balls? Okay? You'll bring a smile to my face. All right? But, those are just cliches. We got to move beyond that. So level 2 is declare facts. Okay, you start declaring facts. Like we do this a lot with the weather. Oh, what a beautiful day. Isn't that how we love living in Florida, because days like this? And we're just making conversation, just declaring facts. That's a pretty safe level. Did you hear the latest news? Whatever it is. I love hanging out the foyer before and after services, and I've been doing this, people will tell you, for 30 plus years. I've done this ever since I was pastor of this church. This is not an act for me. I love people. I got into the business because I love people. I love chatting with you guys. I love meeting new people. If you're new, I love to meet you. I may not remember your name right away, but I love meeting people. It's not an act with me. But usually you start on this surface level. How you doing, and then as you get deeper, you get to know people better. But at a church like this size, you've got to get in a group or some sort where people can really get to know you, because you want to get beyond level 1 and 2. Level 3 is you start stating your opinions. Now you're starting to get out there. Now you're starting not to be so safe. This is what I think. This is what I believe. Okay? Here's what I think about Doge. Here's what I think about the tariffs. Here's what I think about the Epstein files. Okay? Here's what I think about the end times. Now you're putting yourself out there. Getting a little bit more risky here. But guys, I believe honest dialogue, honest discussion, honest debate is good for our country, it's good for our community, it's good for our church. How are we going to progress without us having an exchange of ideas? How are we going to progress if we have the good debate, but we do it respectfully? How are we going to do that? How are you going to grow a great marriage if you don't start getting into those things you really believe? We got to have honest dialogue. And sometimes it gets kind of risky. You start getting misunderstood a little bit when you start sharing these things. Level 4, now we're really getting risky. We're sharing feelings. This is where we want to be. This is what I feel about this. I felt hurt when you said that or when you did that. This made me upset. You're opening up and it's scary. But guys, that's the only way you're going to build intimacy. To start talking about these things you really feel, you really believe. Yeah, we're going to risk being misunderstood. Yes, we're going to risk being someone disagreeing with us. Yes, we're going to risk being hurt. But again, you can't love in a bubble. You got to get out there and start sharing your heart. So they'll teach you, I statements are healthy, you statements are not healthy. What do I mean by that? If you've heard people talk about this, I statements are good. I feel this way, I think this way, I believe this way. They can't argue with that. That's how you're feeling. But you statements, you start playing the blame game. You start pointing fingers at them. You. You always do this. You never do this. Now you put the other person on the defensive. Okay? That's not where you want them. You want drawing them in, not pushing them away. So, someone could say, you're always so inconsiderate of me when we're around our friends. See, you just put the blame on. Here's a better way of saying it. I feel hurt when you put me down in front of our friends. Again, that's healthy. You're sharing how you feel. Then let's talk about it. Let's dialogue about it. But instead of just blaming, pushing. Self-disclosure, being transparent is going to draw people to do the same. You open up, they're going to open up. And isn't that what we want? Open relationship? Talking about things? So a great question is to say, what are you feeling right now? What are you feeling right now? And then you just sit and listen and hear them. Level 5, this is the highest level we want to be at. We're now revealing needs that we have. I need for you to be honest with me. That's a fair statement. I need you to listen and not try to fix everything. I hear that a lot from Kelly because I'm a fixer. I'm this guy who wants to provide and I want to protect and I want to fix things, but sometimes she just wants me to listen. So I need you to listen today, Mark, not fix anything. That's healthy. I need you to give me the benefit of the doubt and always thinking of the worst first. Give me the benefit of the doubt. I'm on your team. I love you. But you're always going to the other side. That's okay. Share your needs. As a leader of a lot of people, this is something I need to get in the habit of asking people that serve underneath me, that I oversee. Hey, man, what do you need from me as your leader? What do you need from me to help you do your job? So those of you who are leaders, that's a good thing to ask those people who work with you. But guys, our goal is to be on level 4 and level 5, to get deeper into our relationships. In Christian marriage, for those of us who are married, our number one role and responsibility is to help this person get closer to Jesus Christ. To help this person that God has set me up with for life to be more like Jesus. So I'm modeling for that person what I think it looks like to look like Jesus, and I'm helping them to become that way. Guys, the only way you do that is you get to feelings and needs, and you start talking about the deep stuff. And you get away from the surface talk. Ephesians 4:15, we speak the truth in love, growing in every way more and more like Christ. Again, that verse can be about marriage, it can be about friendships, it can be about parent-child relationships. We want to speak the truth in love in this relationship so that we become more like Christ. You got to have the courage to do that. You've got to create a safe environment for all parties to be able to do that, to speak the truth in love. Just came from Starting Point. It introduces new people to our church, and I just said one of the things of this church that I think we do really well is that we want to speak truth, but we want to do it with love and grace. But you can't build a great church, and you can't build a great marriage, and you can't build a great family without doing all three: faith, truth, grace, love. I'm sorry, that was 4. Anyway. You get the point. You're going to have to decide, guys, do I want an honest relationship? Am I letting people be real with me? Or are we just going to live on the surface and we're just going to act like everything's okay and it's not okay? 4 styles of communication. 4 styles of communication you can have, but only one of them is healthy. We can have aggressive communication. We can demand our way, my way or the highway. We can be very strong. We can be a bruiser. We can break through boundaries. We can be looking after our own needs and desires, and everybody else's, we don't look after their needs and desires. We can win at any cost. And those of us who get in aggressor mode, I've been in aggressor mode, that's what happens. We push people away more than we pull them in. You know, it's like this one lady said, I always hoped that I would marry Mr. Right. I just didn't know his first name would be Always. So we're in an aggressive mode. We're using criticism. We're blaming people. We're dominating. We're not listening well. And some of us, we're really good at that. But it devalues other people. So with this style, you may win short term. You're not going to win long term. Style number 2 is just as destructive. It doesn't seem that way, but it is. It's a passive. You're passive. You're not expressing your feelings and desires. You're repressing them. You're deferring to people all the time. Oh, I don't care. Whatever you think, doesn't matter to me. You decide. You're avoiding conflict. You're avoiding criticism. But you're allowing your own rights to be trounced on. And this style doesn't really make you really close to this other person because you're just not even talking about what's important to you. You're just a doormat. And many times it leads to weaker self-esteem, and you have resentment. Sooner or later, you'll have resentment because your needs are not being met. Guys, we all have feelings. We all have thoughts. We all have desires that need to be valued. And we need to get to a point where both people in the relationship have values that are being lifted up. Both people are validated. Style number 3 is also not helpful. And this is the one that gets me the most, I'll be honest. And it's the passive-aggressive. Okay? This is the person who's going to forfeit their rights at first or their desires at first, but they're subtly conveying resentment later on, or suddenly they're going to try to get vengeance later on. Like they're trying to avoid conflict, but what happens is disloyalty leaks, and eventually it's going to come back to you that they talked about you behind your back, and that leads to conflict even bigger. So they'll be passive to someone's face, and they'll be cooperative to someone's face, but then they're aggressive behind the back. They're going to appear to be cooperative, but they're really working behind the scenes to get their way. It's deceitful, it's sneaky, it's cowardly. It hurts relationships. I'm big into Motown music. Anybody into Motown music? Anybody else like Motown music? Man, I thought there'd be more of us. Yeah. Remember that song, Smiling Faces, by The Disputed Truth? It goes like this: smiling faces sometimes pretend to be your friend. Smiling faces show no traces of the evil that lurks within. Can you dig it? Smiling faces, sometimes they don't tell the truth. Smiling faces tell lies. I got proof. People sometimes that are smiling to your face are the ones that are talking behind your back. That can't be good for relationships. Man, let's just shoot straight with each other. Let's look each other in the face and say, this is what I think, this is what I believe. This is the next behavior. This is where you need to be. This is assertive. I'm being assertive. I'm expressing my feelings. I'm expressing my desires. I'm sharing my rights, but I'm doing it in a respectful way. I'm respecting other people's rights too. I'm asking clearly and directly for what I want or what I think is right, but I'm also respectful of what they want and what they need. I'm finding a solution that's going to be good for the both of us, not just for myself. I'm going to demonstrate authenticity, and I'm going to be courageous by stepping out and sharing what I think and what I believe and what I need. Guys, it makes you feel better about yourself when you do it this way, and it makes other people respect you more. It does. In the long run, they'll respect you more for being that way. So this is the kind of environment we want to create, a safe environment where everybody can do this in our family, everybody can do this in our marriage, everybody can do this on our team. We can talk about things, but we can disagree without being disagreeable because we're going to have conflict. But Gary Smalley says conflict is the doorway to intimacy. We're all going to have conflicts when we start sharing our needs and our feelings, but you see, when you're disagreeing with somebody and you're having a conflict, if you look at them and you learn from it, as you talk through it, you're going to learn more about them than you ever learned before, and you're going to learn more about yourself. And when you learn to forgive each other, it's going to bond you in a greater way because you just worked through something together. You didn't give up on each other. And it builds you stronger and closer together when you work through conflict. Ephesians 4:25. Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, to your parent, to your child, to your spouse, for all are members of one body. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you're still angry. Do not give the devil a foothold. We give the devil a foothold when we're aggressors, when we're passive-aggressive. Don't give him a foothold in the relationship. Kay Arthur had a great definition of good communication. I wanted to read it to you. Communication is the free exchange of thoughts, ideas, and opinions shared between two or more people who are willing to be open, honest, and vulnerable. Are you willing to do that? Here's 7 tips today. 7 tips and 4 techniques that I've learned help provide effective communication. Technique number 1. Come up with a way to share the same language with each other. Come up with a way of sharing emotional word pictures so that the person can understand how you feel and what you need. And there's all kinds of areas, and pick one that you're very familiar with. Maybe if you're a gardener, you're into gardening and the family's in the gardening, you can use the garden. Hey, just like a garden, we have to weed it out of things that are bad so that we can cultivate the good stuff. There's things in our relationship we need to weed out right now. So you just say, here's one of the weeds we need to weed out right now. Because we want to provide the good stuff. And that's just an analogy. You're giving a word picture for them to remember. Okay? Or something like this. You know what? I've been blowing up balloons today, ready to party with you. And I just felt you walked right in here and you just popped all my balloons. That's a word picture. You just rained on my parade today. I was in a good mood. Now I'm in a bad mood because, but you're just sharing a word picture of how you feel. Again, you're not doing the you thing, but you're doing it's how I feel. Or maybe you're into hockey. I thought of this one. You can say, man, I just think you put me in the penalty box and I don't know that I deserve to be there. But I would much prefer us just to end the period and go in the locker room and talk about it again and come back with a new attitude. So let's go back and talk about it. It's not going to do any good for me to be in the penalty box. You give me the silent treatment. You know what I'm saying? You just talk about it using word pictures. Or here's one just really easy. 0 to 10, where are we in this area of our life? In this area of our life, 0 to 10, where do you think we are? And then you give your score, and then you talk about it. So tip number 1, always communicate to build up, not to break down. This is what Ephesians 4 says. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building up others according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. That's a great verse to think about before you have any tense conversation. I'm walking into this, and I want the best for them, and I want them to have the best for me. We want to both benefit out of this, and I'm going to build them up out of this, not break them down. Unwholesome talk, what would that be? Oh, there's all kinds of things that could be in that category. But the Greek word actually means, unwholesome means damaged or decayed, kind of like fruit or a produce that would be damaged or decaying. Like if you went to the grocery store and you picked out some fruit and you got it home and it was all moldy or it was all decaying. I was like, oh man, I can't eat this. Unwholesome talk puts your relationship in a decaying state. Damaging state. We want to do that with unwholesome talk. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. Well, again, we got to speak the truth, but let's just do it in the right way. Technique number 2 to help us here. Let's establish some relationship core values. In other words, this is what we want in our marriage. This is what we want in this friendship. This is what we want in parent-child relationship. Let's come up with some family rules together. Let's talk about it. We did this as a staff about a year ago. We said, okay, we want to be a unified staff. We have a big staff now. We're all working towards great goals together, but we want to make sure we're working well together. And so we help us design 12 staff values. Some of those are believe in the best of each other, believe in the best, give each other the benefit of the doubt. Another core value is bring joy. You know, we're going to work hard and we're going to be serious, but we don't forget to have fun at the workplace. So we have fun together. Be unified is one of our core values. You know what the number 1 voted core value for our staff values? The number 1 they voted for was be authentic. People just want you to be honest with them. Just be honest with me. Just be authentic. Be your person. Be who you are. So you come up with your own family values and talk it out, and then you use that shared language regularly so that people know this is important to us. That's a good thing to do. Ecclesiastes 12:11. The words of the wise are like cattle prods, painful but helpful. He's using a word picture. Their collected sayings are like a nail-studded stick with which a shepherd drives the sheep. But you notice here he said their collected sayings. These are things they say regularly, shared language, things over again, help guide them down the right pathway. But sometimes those sayings and sometimes those words are like nail-studded sticks. They hurt, but they're really there to guide you in the right direction and be helpful, not hurtful. I like that. Here's tip number 2. In any relationship, affirm early and often. Because you're going to have to say some tough things. Like that conversation somebody's going to have right now with that phone going on. You're going to have a tough conversation. You're going to have a tough conversation with people, so you want to make sure you've already been affirming them early and often, so that when you do talk about tough stuff, you've already been feeding them a good diet of affirmation. 1 Thessalonians 5:11, therefore encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you are doing. Would you agree? It's a lot easier to take critique after you've heard a whole lot of praise. What's praise? Praise is when you lift somebody up, you honor them well, you give them value. That's what praise means. You praise specifically. You get real specific in your praise. And then you get praising generously, regularly. How often do you praise your spouse, those of you who are married? How often do you affirm your children? If you were to go back this week and all the comments you said to this person, and you put them all out there all week long, how many of them would be in the positive category? How many would be in the negative, criticizing category? What would that ratio look like for you? That's going to be an indicator of where your relationship is right now. They've done studies on this. John Gottman is one of those guys, studies relationships and married couples particularly. Happy couples, on an average, I got some new information last service, so I'm going to share the new information. Happy couples, on average, on a daily basis, have 20 times more positive comments than negative comments. And then when they're in conflict, happy couples have 5 times the positive comments to the negative comment. To me, that's a magic ratio, that you're having a lot more positive interactions, words, than you are negative. So one of the things we do as a family, we usually do this around birthdays, special occasions. We don't do it as frequently because we're all spread out a little bit more now. But we would gather the person on their birthday, give them some gifts, and then we'd say, let's just go around the table. Tell them one of your favorite things you love about this person. What do you love about Jessica today? And we'd all just share stories. And we just wanted to lay on affirmation. Guys, we can't have enough of that. We all have a need for that. So you don't have to wait for their birthday. Maybe you just come home and you just on a regular basis, you say things like this, man, I just want to share 3 things I love about you, 3 things I appreciate about you today. And you just say it. Now, one of my favorite quotes of all time, Robert Louis Stevenson had it. I love this. I hope you'll remember this. Make the most of the best and the least of the worst. Make the most of the best and the least of the worst. That's a good principle. So, when you hit a tough spot, you may not feel like praising this person. But remember, that's when we need it the most, when we're going through conflict. Let's keep the 5X principle into play. All right, tip number 3. Commit to being a good listener to become a great learner. We listen to learn. James 1:19, you heard this verse? Let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to become angry. Great relationship principle. Would people that you work with, would they say that you're a great listener? People in your family, would they give you high scores of you taking time to listen to them on a consistent basis? Guys, that's how we're going to get on level 4 and 5, is we're listening well. You've heard of the great principle. Seek to understand before you first seek to be understood. You got to seek to understand before you start sharing your heart and wanting to be understood. So Dale Carnegie wrote the great book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. He said this is good. You can make more friends in 2 months by becoming genuinely interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. So if you want people surrounding you, wanting to be your friend, just be interested in people. Be caring, be loving, want to hear their stories. Tell me more. How many of you have ever been to a high school reunion? Just curious. How many of you have been to a high school reunion? Okay. Many of you know I grew up in small town Tennessee and went to high school there, and there was 136 people in my graduating class, so I knew everybody in school. But it's interesting, you go back decades later and you see who the people really who did have great relationships. And there's some people, man, they were so popular, they were so funny, they were who's who in high school. Look at me, look how impressive I am, look how beautiful I am, look how wonderful I am at sports, and they were all about themselves. And you thought, oh, wow, they're the people I'm going to go back to in the high school reunion, and they're going to be the people who still are just like, got it going. Not always the case. What I discovered is the people who are happy and satisfied and successful many times this stage of the game, years later, are the ones who were putting other people before themselves. Constantly asking the question, tell me more about your trip, tell me more about your job. I want to learn more about you. That's going to build great relationships. 1 Peter 3:7, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way. Husbands, you cannot say this enough. Tell me how you're feeling today. Tell me what you're needing from me today. Tell me how I can love you better. I'm telling you, you're going to fill her tank when you start asking those questions and sit down and listen to her. Be understanding. Here's a technique that will help us. It's called drive-through talking. Okay? You know, when you go to the fast food restaurant, you pull up there and you're given your order. You know, I've got a double hamburger. I want pickles and mustard on that. I want jalapenos. Got to have jalapenos. No cheese. I want fries, and I want a strawberry banana smoothie with dark chocolate on it. Okay, let me see what I got. I got a double hamburger, I got pickles, I got mustard, I got jalapenos, no cheese, fries, and a strawberry banana smoothie. Don't forget about the dark chocolate. Oh, yeah, don't forget about the dark chocolate. Okay, so you just clarified. That's what you do. Drive through talking. You take the person, you say, here's what I heard you say. You said this was important to you. Did I get it right? No. There's something else I didn't share. Here, I want to make sure and clarify. You clarify. You talk through things. You say it back and forth. Here's what you're doing. You're restating the idea and you're restating the emotion that you're sensing. That's what you're doing. So, I'll give you an example. Someone says to their husband, you've been gone every night this week. Yes, here's a good response. Yes, I've been working late every night this week. You restate the idea. I heard you. But it's a full court press at work right now, and I've got a lot of deadlines. That's why I'm working a lot. But it sounds like you're upset about this. Now you just restated the emotion. You want to talk about it? Can we talk about it? You see, that's a different way than for you to get upset and mad and come back at them, and then you're not getting anywhere. The biggest communication problem we have is we don't listen to understand, we listen to reply. Right? They're talking, and we're already thinking about what we're going to say next. Make our point. We don't listen to learn, we listen to reply. Okay, but, guys, cut the buts. And just listen and learn from the conversation. Great marriage partners are great learners. They're learning how to compromise, they're learning how to be compassionate, and they're learning how to communicate. Tip number 4, ask quality questions instead of pretending to be a mind reader. Okay? Maybe I'm aging myself, but many years ago, late night show host Johnny Carson. Remember Johnny Carson? He had Karnak the Magnificent. Anybody remember that? You know, he got the card. And he's going to tell you what the card says. Well, the other night, Kelly and I were having this conversation, and she said something, and I just went silent. I didn't say anything. Next thing I know, she's Kelly the Magnificent. She's a psychic. She's telling me what I'm thinking. And it wasn't correct. It's like the husband who said, I always know what she's thinking because she's always telling me. And she always knows what I'm thinking because she tells me that too. Don't be that person. Okay, don't be a mind reader. Just say, can I clarify? Ask some questions and find out what they really are thinking besides telling them what they're thinking. Proverbs 25, the purpose in a man's heart is like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out. So here's a technique to do this. It's called salting for creating thirst. You salt somebody. You know, when you put salt on food, it causes a thirst, causes you to want water. Okay? So what you're trying to do is you're trying to pique their interest. You're trying to create their curiosity because you want to have this discussion, but right now you're feeling like they're not listening. They're not engaged. So you do something to salt them so that they can say, tell me more. So here's what I do to Kelly. I'm giving my tips, but she already knows all my techniques anyway. Kelly, remind me that I want to tell you something later when you're not so distracted. I'll do that. And almost immediately she'll say, tell me now. Tell me now. Or I'll start a conversation and then I'll stop. It's like, you know what? I don't need to bother you with that. I don't need to go there. It's like, you can't do that to me. You got to finish. Right? And I've just salted her. And again, she knows all my techniques now, but it still works. Okay? But here's one she does with me. It's like, Mark, I have figured out a way we can save some money. Okay? Now I'm all ears. We can buy 2 instead of 1. You know? Or here she knows I'm a visual learner, and she'll say, you know, Mark, I saw this video today. It was very interesting. I want to share it with you later. No, let's watch it now. She knows that about me. So you just find ways to pique their interest because you do want to have this conversation. Tip number 5, focus on the current issue at hand. Don't flood them with all these multiple issues at once. It's going to frustrate them. And when they bring something up, you can't immediately say, oh yeah, but you got this issue over here and we need to talk about it. You got to talk about the issue first, and then you can say, but I got something else later we need to talk about also. That's okay. But you got to talk about what the issue is they brought up first. Don't distract from the issue at hand. All right, tip number 6. Got to move along. We're almost out of here, and then we're going to have communion. Push pause when needed, but no shutting down. There may be some times that you're feeling the heat, you're feeling flooded, and you need some time to think about it, and that's okay, but you've got to come back to the table and talk later. So it's okay to say, hey, man, this discussion has really got intense for me. I'm kind of getting angry maybe, and I need to take a break and cool off, take care of myself. Let's get back in an hour and we'll have this conversation. That's okay, but you got to come back. You can't just push it off. Proverbs 15:28, the heart of the righteous ponders how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours out evil things. It would be better for you to pause and ponder and think about your response than to shoot your mouth off and hurt everybody in the room, okay? Last tip, tip 7, clean out any and all contempt in the relationship that you see. Contempt is like a cancer. It is like a mold. It's going to continue to grow and get bad if you don't deal with it. So contempt is when you're looking down on that person, you're sneering, you're using hostile humor, you're rolling the eyes, you're making them feel so low. And when that is existing in a marriage, you need to get some help. You need to get some professional help because that could end badly quickly. Last verse, Proverbs 15:1. A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Guys, there's so much more to share. We'll be sharing in the coming weeks, but we've got to learn how to communicate well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pray for your relationships right now, and then we're going to enter into a time of communion with God and finish with a song, and then we'll be leaving today. Let's pray. Lord, I do lift up our relationships, and as we've been talking about this, I know that every one of us has been thinking about a relationship that maybe needs a lot of attention and needs us to practice these things, and I pray that we'll learn how to do that. Take your principles, take your word, and learn to communicate in a way that's respectful, loving, but honest. And I pray that marriages can be healed. I pray that families can come together stronger than ever before because of these talks. We love the people you've placed around us, but we've got to learn how to love them better. Help us to do that. Pray in Jesus' name. Amen.